Bersa Thunder 380, one of my least favorite handguns ever. Extended for her pleasure. Ow. Such a ridiculous gun. Bit of auto forwarding. Decock it by putting on the safety. It doesn't really change the trigger pull much. Alright, some Hornady self-defense rounds. Go gadget auto forwarding. Ow. Oh, the last round it finally locks open. Out of all those, the only time it locks open. Bersa Thunder 380. What a piece of shit. And this shit right here, this is why I hate this. This is the most painful handgun I've ever shot in my life. I despise it. Let's talk about what makes this one of my least favorite handguns ever. So this is the Bersa Thunder 380. It's made in Argentina. Bersa basically copied the Walther. And I don't know, it's just terrible. So obviously the first thing from the shooting footage, this beaver tail is kind of thin, and the way that it rides on your hand, it just slaps every time you fire. And I have had it break the skin here. I've been bleeding while I'm shooting it. I owned one of these, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe. Had a Crimson Trace hand grip on it, so it had the laser thing on the side. I hated practicing with it, so I sold it. It was nice for a pocket carry for the summer, but it was painful to practice with, and if you don't want to practice with it, then I wouldn't carry it because you're not going to be any good with it. That is the number one thing, is this beaver tail just really eats into the web of my hand here. Maybe your hands are a little smaller, I don't know. I've got kind of beefy hands. I played bass for a long time, so I've got a lot of muscle built up in between, and it just eats my hand there. I absolutely hate it. Other than that, there's a lot of things to not like. So let's start with the trigger. The trigger is terrible. It is a really long pull, and it's on safe right now. So the safety is a trigger disconnect. You can see the trigger bar is partially outside here. So it's disconnected when it's on safe. If you take it off of safe, we'll double check. Nothing in there. Let's pull that trigger. Oh, what's happening? It's still disconnected. What's going on? Well, if you see this part right here, this is a magazine disconnect. So you cannot fire this without the magazine. I absolutely despise magazine disconnects. If you've ever taken any training class with pistols, you'll probably figure out why. Because if your magazine is not completely seated, even if you have a round chambered, you're not going to get that round off in an emergency. So it's just a pain in the butt. So now if you insert a magazine, which will press in on this, see on the magazine here, it's got the little bump on the bottom. See that little bump? That's going to engage that magazine disconnect. And now you can pull the trigger. Now, when you've got the magazine in there, look how long this trigger pull is. It's a very long double action pull. It's not great. But also, the reset on the single action is not great, and it's very mushy. So the trigger is not great, and I hate the magazine disconnect. And because it's made in South America, there's also a key which physically locks out the trigger. I've always hated those. If you don't want somebody pulling the trigger, just put the gun in a safe. Number 3. Do you see those sights? Yeah. They're kind of non-existent 3-dot sights. There's not much to say other than they're terrible. They're just tiny, they're very hard to see, and it's very hard to find replacement sights for this thing. Obviously, no option to add any sort of mini red dot on here. Yeah, it's not great, and it's in 380, and you can do so much better today. If you really want 380, there's a P365 and 380. Ruger makes some excellent handguns. Capacity is terrible. Also, I don't know if you saw in the shooting video, every time I tried to release the magazine, I tried to press the magazine release where it should be. No, it's way up here underneath the slide catch. You have to change your grip. I have pretty big hands, and I can't get that without completely changing my grip. That's just a pain in the butt. Magazine capacity is very limited. I believe these are 7 rounds. It's not great. It's single stack. They do have an extended magazine. This is not super reliable, and sometimes this kind of hangs down a little bit and it doesn't activate the magazine disconnect. So yeah, it's not fantastic. This is very dirty. I am going to clean this up and trade it in after this video. I bought this for my wife because she insisted that this was the gun that she wanted, that would make her want to shoot at the range and make her carry, and then we got it for her and she did not like it at all, which is not surprising because I never liked this gun. To disassemble this, because of the way it is built, obviously there's not room under the barrel for a recoil assembly. So you slide the disassembly lever down, pull the slide as far back as you can, lift up, and let it go forward. Urgh. Come on, there we go. So then your slide comes off in one piece, and then clearly the recoil spring is around the barrel. And yes, this is filthy because I was shooting some terrible Russian ammo through this, because I don't care, because it's a terrible gun. And there you go. So it's a fixed barrel, which is good for feeding The recoil is not terrible. It is very hard to aim with those sights, however. There is no option to put any light on here unless you get one of the Crimson Trace ones that's built into the grips. The grips are okay. The recoil's not bad, obviously, because it's 380, but it's, God, this, like, I've shot 50 caliber Desert Eagles. I've shot large revolvers. I've shot scandium framed 357s, which are not pleasant because they kind of slap you in the palm. But this is the worst gun I've ever shot in terms of pain. This is just so painful. It's just terrible. So these are super cheap. I think I picked this up used for like $199 or something like that. Just don't do it. There's so many better options out there. Get a Taurus, it's a better option, for God's sake. That's it. That's all I got. This is just not a great pistol. Don't buy one. Obviously, to put it back together, you just slide the slide on. Slide it back. Well, you got to push the lever back, slide it back and down. The lever flips up on its own. There you go. Your terrible pistol is back together. And then you'll take it apart and clean it and get rid of it. That's it. Just a quick public service announcement to never buy a Bersa Thunder 380.